Hey everybody, Arnaldo here, broadcasting from Fidelio's Frequency. Welcome to my channel. It has been way too long since I haven't published a new episode in my ongoing miniseries about the Smiths, and it is about time that we talk about B-sides. In this video, I will be sharing with you what I think are the 10 best B-sides. Yes, I dare to say not only in my opinion, but I pretty much think these are the best ones. And I'll take you on a journey through these B-sides in this episode of The Sun Shines Out of Our Behinds. During their activity or existence, the Smiths released 17 singles in the UK. There were a handful more singles that were released and exclusive only to certain territories, namely the United States, Germany, Netherlands, Australia, New Zealand, bringing, I think, the total up to 24. But 17 already is a very impressive feat for a group that was only in existence for 5 years. And the crazy thing about this is most of these songs, whether they're A sides and for sure the B sides, were never included in any official studio album. Later in the career, the A sides were actually being pulled from albums or leading up to the albums, but the B sides never were featured unless they were collected subsequently, of course, in compilations like Hatful of Hollow, The World Won't Listen, and Louder Than Bombs, and maybe some other ones which pulled out of the archives some B-sides that were kind of like forgotten and lost, or at least versions of songs that were forgotten and lost. So let's take a look at these 10 songs that I think are the best of the B-sides. So I guess we should start off with the very first B-side, very first single. This release was my inaugural video of this miniseries, and we're taking a look back to Hand in Glove, the very first single by the Smiths. And the B-side is Handsome Devil. This song was probably one of the very first songs that Morrissey and Marr wrote together. It is probably one of their rockiest songs. It's a post-punk rocker with an amazing riff by Johnny Marr, great rhythm section by Andy Rourke and Mike Joyce, but it also contains probably one of the most sexual lyrics by Morrissey, lyrics that got him into a little heat, as well as the band. References to who will swallow who, mammary glands, but more importantly, references to a scholarly room, which really led listeners and critics, most importantly, who twisted these lyrics, into thinking that there was some teacher pupil kind of sex situation happening. One liner, which is beautiful. I think he had some inspiration from Kurt Vonnegut, where my favorite lyric is, "There's more to life than books, you know?" But Morrissey had to defend himself. The criticism, he denied any type of reference to a child sex kind of situation, but was already a little too late. Handsome Devil was one of the tracks that the Smiths performed during the John Peel show, and the BBC, in light of all the controversy, pulled that performance from airing, but nonetheless, it was eventually featured and collected, at least the version from the John Peel session, collected in Hatful of Hollow. But the version that we find as a B-side of Hand in Glove, which was recorded on their third only gig, recorded at the Hacienda in Manchester, in sometime in, I think it was the winter, maybe January, February of 1983, is not featured anywhere else but in the fantastic collection available only on CD and specifically 2 CD set, The Sound of the Smiths, which I highly recommend. The second song I'd like to feature is from their second single, This Charming Man, not featured, or at least written on the back of the cover, but the name of the song is Gene. Very early song written with by Morrissey and Marr. Morrissey suggested Johnny Marr speed it up a bit, so it turned from a jangly kind of song to more of a stomp with a riff that's almost reminiscent of the Kinks. The lyrics tell the tale of two people almost living on the dole, not much money, trying to make ends meet. And some people have seen it as autobiographical, referring to when Morrissey briefly moved out from his family home to live with his best friend, Linder Sterling. But this song is the only song that was released while the Smiths were in existence from the Troy Tate sessions, the sessions for their first album, which were aborted. Troy Tate was replaced by John Porter. So this version of Gene has been elusive for a long time. The respective 12-inch single of This Charming Man features two other B-sides, which, and it does not include this one here, which is Gene. It was only fished out again in the fabulous compilation 2 CD set, The Sound of the Smiths. So we're kind of going in chronological order. The third B-side that I would like to highlight is from the Smiths' third single. I'm going to cheat a little bit because What Difference Does It Make does have, as you can see here, the song that I'd like to mention, Back to the Old House. But I prefer, and I think it's highly superior, the version of Back to the Old House that was featured on Hatful of Hollow. The reason being is the version on Hatful of Hollow is taken from the John Peel sessions, from the BBC sessions, and it's a straightforward acoustic song, just Morrissey and Johnny Marr with beautiful finger picking, very inspired by Bert Jansch. Whereas the version that is the B side of What Difference Does It Make is more of an electric with bass, drums, electric guitar. I think it loses a lot of its charm in the version on What Difference Does It Make, but nonetheless, I'm considering it a B side, a song that was inspired, almost romantic, acoustic ballad or song that Johnny Marr wrote thinking of his soon to be wife, then girlfriend, Angie, and a very sad song also for Morrissey from a lyrical point of view. It talks about not wanting to go back to a childhood home because of a lost love that is attached to the memories of that house. So, third pick for my B side is Back to the Old House. The fourth B side I would like to highlight, I've already talked about in another video. The name of that video is The Perfect Record because not only does it have a stellar A side, it has two killer B sides, two of my favorite Smith songs of all time, to the point where, and I'm not going to talk about How Soon Is Now because it eventually ended up being an A side, so I'm not going to qualify it as a B side. What I would like to talk about is the other B side on William, It Was Really Nothing, and that is Please, Please, Please Let Me Get What I Want. I think it's the Smiths song with the longest title, but for sure, it is the shortest of the Smith songs, clocking in only at 1 minute and 50 seconds. It leaves you wanting more, waiting for more, to the point where when it was presented to the label, they all were questioning, where's the rest of the song? But I think the beauty of the song is because it's so brief and it leaves you wanting more. A folky tune that I think Johnny Marr was inspired by a Del Shannon song, which is To Answer to Everything. And of course, Morrissey's lyrics, starting off almost hopeful with hope, then turning into melancholic, and then ending up being hopeless. This is the most featured, I think, song by the Smiths in movies and soundtracks. So give it a listen. Please, please, please let me get what I want. The fifth B side I would like to highlight is taken from a 1985 single called Shakespeare Sister. And I think this is probably one of the first times that the Smiths pulled as a B side another track that was on an album from Mita's Murder, What She Said. But the song I'd like to talk about is Stretch Out and Wait. When this song came out in 1985, both Morrissey and Marr stated that this was the best song or the best thing they had ever written. And I can't disagree with that. Another sexual lyric from Morrissey, this time almost inviting people to abandon themselves into carnal pleasures. And it was featured on two compilations as well. This version has a lyric, the opening lyric is on the high rise estates, what's at the back of your mind. Another version that was featured later on The World Won't Listen is an alternate mix and with an alternate opening line, which is all the lies that you make up. So Stretch Out and Wait, my fifth choice. B-sides number 6 and 7 that I would like to call out. I'm calling them out together because they're both featured as B-sides of the same 12-inch single. Probably this would be the second most perfect record by the Smiths because a stellar A side called The Boy with a Thorn in His Side. The first B side, well, the single came out towards the end of 1985. The first B side is Rubber Ring, a classic, spooky song with kind of like a funky bass line, lyrics that are almost alluding to the fear of being forgotten by the fans. It really kind of represents what the Smiths meant to their fans and fans that were sometimes a product of isolation and had all their faith in the songs of the Smiths to the point where probably one of my favorite lyrics of this song, Rubber Ring, is, but don't forget the songs that made you cry and the songs that saved your life. The run out sample that goes pretty much, you are dreaming, you do not want to believe, leads onto the piano chords and a howling wind sound that blends into the following B side. And that B side is Asleep. Asleep is a lullaby which sees Morrissey accompanied only by Johnny Marr on piano. A lullaby that is really not singing someone to sleep in a physical sense, but more sleep interpreted as, at least in the lyrics, as death. And however, it is, while it's alluding maybe in some cases to an advocation for suicide, but it has a bright ending. Uh, the final lyric is, there is a better world. And the closing musical notes of this song are a musical box, which is playing Old Lang Syne, which is typically played at the beginning of a new year, right? It's very auspicious to play Old Lang Syne, ushering in the new year with a lot of hope. This song, Asleep, was performed by the band only once live, and it was only because the venue that the Smiths were performing at happened to have an in-house piano, so they figured what better time to sing this song live as it was intended, as it was recorded on The Boy with a Thorn in His Side 12-inch. So to recap, two songs from here, 6 and 7, Rubber Ring and Asleep. So another double feature for B-sides number 8 and 9. Both of these songs were released as B-sides in 1986 to the single Big Mouth Strikes Again. The first song is kind of an unusual pick for me. It's an instrumental. It's the second instrumental that the Smiths released, obviously composed only by Johnny Marr. The name of that song is Money Changes Everything. And interesting that the riff for this song was composed almost by accident. Johnny Marr was working on another song in a demo form. He flipped the cassette that he was recording on and played it backwards. And he enjoyed the riff that was being played backwards to the point where he learned it backwards and ended up composing Money Changes Everything. It was left without a lyric because Morrissey didn't feel that it was needed. However, justice was made to Money Changes Everything because later in 19, I think it was 19 either 70, 87 or 88, Brian Ferry reworked Money Changes Everything with the participation of Johnny Marr, who played on the album Bête Noire as a session man, and Money Changes Everything with lyrics ended up being the right stuff for Brian Ferry. The other B side featured here on the hype sticker is Unlovable. Almost made it to an album. It was recorded during the 1986 recording sessions for The Queen is Dead, and it almost made it to the album until it got bumped by another song, Vicar in a Tutu. So it ended up only as a B-side to Big Mouth Strikes Again. The lyrics, very self-deprecating, but kind of ironic because apparently Morrissey was inspired by a fan letter, and they're really not self-deprecating for himself, but maybe for someone else that was writing the letter. Some great one-liners on here on Unlovable. I wear black on the outside because black is how I feel on the inside. I don't have much in my life, but take it. It's yours. And if I seem a little strange, well, that's because I am. It definitely ranks amongst one of my favorite Smith songs. Um, Another piece of trivia, Johnny Marr wrote it very late at night, uh, put it in demo form on a cassette, and dropped it off in Morrissey's home in his mailbox. The following morning or the following day, Morrissey already had perfect lyrics to match Unlovable. So that is two songs from Big Mouth Strikes Again, Money Changes Everything, and Unlovable. So the 10th and final best B-side by the Smiths is taken from their 1987 single called Shoplifters of the World Unite. I don't know if you could see it here on the back. The name of that song is Half a Person. And according to Johnny Marr, he stated that this song, Half a Person, is one of the most beautiful songs that the Smiths have ever recorded. And he probably is right. For sure, he said also that this was one of the best songwriting moments with Morrissey. They were also recording You Just Haven't Earned It Yet, Baby. And during a break from those recording sessions on a stairway, Johnny Marr was strumming some chords, coming up with a new tune, and Morrissey sat next to him and started singing the lyrics of Half a Person. The lyrics tell the tale of someone who is longing and chasing a lover for about 6 years only to fail. But the part that is the genius, the musical genius of this song, and it's not the only instance in Smith songs where the vocal melody created by Morrissey is often mismatched to the chord structure of the song underneath. In this case, it's genius because this song has a very short chorus, and Morrissey keeps singing the melody of the chorus after Johnny Marr has already transitioned into the chord structure of the verse. So listen to this song, Half a Person, another genius example of a B-side by the Smiths. So I hope you enjoyed this journey through the 10 best B-sides by the Smiths. You don't have to get the singles. All of these songs are featured on compilations, so you can piece them all together on a nice playlist and listen to what I think are the 10 best B-sides by the Smiths. Thank you so much for watching this episode of The Sun Shines Out of Our Behinds. Please continue to watch Fidelio's Frequency with other videos for you. Don't forget to like the video. Please leave your thoughts, comment, and let me know what your favorite B-sides of the Smiths are. Most importantly, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It is free, does not cost you anything. There's no pyramid scheme. I'm not roping you into a monthly fee. And I guess that's it for today. Once again, thank you for watching, and I will see you hopefully soon.